Hey everybody, how you guys doing? So in this video, we're gonna be doing module number 8. We're gonna be getting into charts and graphs inside of Excel. So without further ado, let's get into this module, guys, and let's get into the learning for today. So as you guys can see here on the PowerPoint, I have a little presentation, gonna walk you guys through some of this stuff, and then we'll jump into the workbook as always. So in today's lesson, we're gonna be learning about charts and graphs in Excel. On the agenda, charts, graphs, the importance of visualizing data, which is very important. A lot of people don't realize the power and the importance of doing quick visualizations for data, especially when it comes to working with cross-functional teams that might not be able to dig into the data and understand it as you guys might as potential analysts. So that's always an important topic. And then the application of these in the real world. Each exercise, I'll explain the data set that we're using and how it can be used in a real life scenario. Some of these things I've done on my own and some of the things that you might do working as an analyst or working as a person in finance, business, accounting, and all of the above. Hands-on, as always, I'm using Windows for today. If you have any questions during the hands-on tutorial, please reach me at matthewngUye2023@fau.edu. 25-minute video in this module, so let's jump into it. These are the types of charts we're going to be dealing with in this video. We're going to be going through these array of charts, and these are the descriptions about these charts, so feel free to dive in, pause the video, read them. You'll also have access to this PowerPoint, so feel free to look over these descriptions and fit them to the data that you feel might be best fit for these scenarios. What can you build inside of Excel? So you can do a comparative analysis, and a comparative analysis is essentially you'll use bar charts, stack bar charts, double bar charts, and even some scatter plots to visualize your data over different categories. These charts help you identify trends, patterns, and more, and they provide clear visualizations, allowing you to make it easier to interpret for your end user, whether that be a client, whether that be management, whether that be a cross-functional team member, and anything alike. Next is going to be composition and distribution. So these include pie charts, map charts, and funnel charts, and other alike charts that allows you to compare data and different types of compositions and the distribution of data out of a whole, for example, or out of different areas. And it allows you to visualize data effectively in this sense. These charts help identify like your proportions, the different variations in terms of this region or not, and also potentially where the data is going to. And also they provide visual insights for different categories as the ones listed and more. Next would be temporal analysis. Basically what this means is just looking at data over time and fluctuations and being able to visualize that in a timely manner. A good example of this and a simple example of this is a line graph. We're not going to be getting into Gantt charts, but Gantt charts are super effective in creating project management tools. They're very useful for project timelines and any bottlenecks in your projects. So check that out on your own time. It'll take a while to make one, but very useful and very powerful when dealing with business analytics and the different timelines when it comes to making a project work. The charts, again, they show you the data and they show you how time is affecting your data. And that's a really important concept is looking at time and looking at data and making an analysis, making a prediction on certain aspects of that data. Lastly, they obviously provide a visualization for your data and allows you to do predictive analysis in the future or just look at it over time and kind of see the trends and visualize that. So let's get into the workbook. But before that, let's actually jump into some examples. So the examples that I wanted to show you is this is as easy as it gets in Excel. You can create this chart in less than 30 seconds. Now, you can also create something like this, which would be a dashboard. A dashboard is basically just a combination of data that you're presenting to an audience. It allows you to visualize data in a condensed way and has different story points along the dashboard itself. So that's useful. And then you can even create something like this, which, whoa, look at that animation. Analysis and even a predictive dashboard where you're predicting certain things, you're looking at percentages and you're looking at different key data points and you're looking at change over time. So something even as crazy as this can be made into Excel, which seems very, very daunting and seems like a very big task, but in no time you'll be able to do so. I'm confident with the skills you'll learn in this quick boot camp. So let's jump into the workbook and let's just go after it. Okay, guys, so let's look at the first chart that we're going to be going over, and this can be a bar chart or a bar graph. And now we're going to start kind of simple, and we'll kind of expand on your knowledge here. And it's very important that we notice that data in Excel is useful to the analyst, but it's not particularly useful to the actual interpreter or the person that's going to be looking at the data. So a bar chart essentially just allows you to visualize data in different categories or groups, and it allows you to look at the maybe change in value and the different summaries of where things are. And visualization is very important because it allows us to notice the actual changes. Numbers on a page might not be so intuitive to some. So it's very easy to make a chart in Excel. All you want to do is you want to select your data. You go to Insert. In this case, we're going to be doing a bar chart. So you can go to this recommended charts area, and I highly recommend that you guys click on this when you're first learning how to make charts. So we'll click on this in this example. It'll give you the recommended charts, and then you can go to all charts, and here you can see all the different types of charts you can make inside of Excel. Very useful, and let's just jump into it. So I'm going to choose this one with the different colors. I'll click OK. Now we have this chart. In this case, our data is just based on categories. So we're going to deep dive into how to make some edits to the chart, and let's just get into it. So that's as simple as making a chart. There you go. Clap your hands together, and that's pretty much it for making a chart, just the Insert tab. But let's actually look into the styles and look into the different labels that we can make with the chart and get some information out of there. So the first things first, let's change this chart title to something more intuitive to our reader. Let's just say category analysis. Category analysis. Okay, so let's say we want to edit the horizontal and the vertical axis for this actual chart. We'll click on the chart. We'll go to chart design, and let's go to add chart element here. You can see you can add the primary horizontal and primary vertical. In this case, this is actually going to be our categories. So we'll change this to category. Excel is going to automatically add this little value down here, but we'll delete this out because we know that's not what we need. We'll go to add chart element. Let's add the vertical axis in this case. So we have the vertical axis here, and we'll change this to values. So our chart is looking pretty good, right? Pretty good. And that's pretty much it for the basics, but let's say I want to make it look a little bit better. So I'm going to choose from this chart styles up here, I can choose this darker color. So I'm going to choose that. Okay, so let's say we want to add data labels, and what data labels are is that they allow us to actually add values to these bars here. So what you want to do is you want to select the chart. Again, go to chart design. I'm going to exit out of this little pane for a second here and go to add chart element. We can go to data labels. I'm going to add them as a data call out, so they call out from the actual bar itself. So you can have these little pop outs here, which is pretty cool. Now let's go back into add chart element, and from here we can look at the different options that we have. We can add a data table in this case with legend keys to actually summarize our data here, which is cool. You can do no legend keys. We can look at error bars. In this case, we're not going to have that in this data set. We can take away the grid lines, and we can add different types of grid lines if we'd like. If our data is a little bit more specific, in this case, it's kind of a summary, so don't have to really do that here. We can also look at the legend in this case, so we can move that from left, top, bottom, right. We can also take the legend out. I recommend adding the legend. I'm actually going to add it to the right here to make it a little bit cleaner. And then we can also look at the quick layout option, and we can actually have Excel recommend our layouts for us, which is cool. But I'm going to leave it in this case. And if you would like to do more with your data, what you can do here is you can click this little format button here, and you can actually look at the different styles and look at the different colors, the color schemes and color palettes that you can do with your data, which is kind of important if you have certain color palettes that you like to use on your specific data. Let's keep with all blue here in this case, which is awesome in this case because it allows us to visualize the different values. We can switch it up to this and whatnot. So another thing that we can do is we can also right click on here, and we can go to format chart area. That way we can actually look at the chart elements on their own. In this case, we have all of these different options. Let's say I want to change the category 1 to be a different color. Let's say I want it to be its own specific color outside of that color palette. I can come here into the fill portion. I can change that to be something different. In this case, I can change it to have a gradient and kind of make some adjustments here to that. I can also go to this little hexagon here, go to the shadows. I can adjust all of these here. So you can really do a lot inside of Excel's data format data series in this case. You can overlap things, you can underlap things, you can make the gap width wider or shorter on specific parts of your data. So all of that's really cool, and you can actually do it and pinpoint each specific data point in this case. Let's look at the plot area. Let's say we want to make this a little bit bigger, right? We can actually increase the plot area in this case. That's always a plus. We can add some different glow options here. I'm not a designer by trade, but feel free to kind of dive deep into how you do this. You can change this to no fill, solid fill. You can add a gradient on here. So let's say I want to change this gradient to a different background to match maybe the firm that we're working with, make it look nice and pretty. I like the way this looks, and we'll leave it here, but feel free to explore this option in Excel to format your charts and data the way you like. And let's move on to the next type of chart in our case, and that's going to be the stacked bar chart. So let's look at the stacked bar chart. We have this data here, right? We have the months, and in this case, we're looking at months and we're looking at regions. This is one of the cases to where it wouldn't be a bad idea to do a stacked bar chart, even though it's dealing with time. So let's choose all this data. Let's go back to Insert. Let's look at the recommended charts. Let's see what they have. They have a line graph here, which is fine. This can analyze our data fine, but let's actually look at it as a stacked bar chart in this case. So let's go down to bar, and let's go to stacked bar chart. And in this case, it's going to be horizontal, but let's say we want to do it vertical. Let's go to column, and we can choose here, stacked column, and let's look at the data in this case. Let's click OK. So as you guys see here, we see the different sales, and we see also the different data points. So we see in January, these are the data points for each region. We have our key down here. I'm not going to spend too much time doing any formatting on the rest of the data series, just so we can get through the different types of charts in this exercise, in this module. So let's take a look at this data here, and I actually want to add something that's going to be pretty cool. So in here, we're going to go to add chart element. Let's do the data labels again, and let's actually do them inside. Right? So it looks a little off here. Let's make it a little bit bigger in this case so we can actually visualize how much each region is contributing to our total sales. So in this case, as we can see in September, the West had $506 in sales, which is pretty useful. In this case, we can kind of visualize it all. Okay, guys, so we have this table, this stacked column chart. I'm gonna add the title here really quickly just to do sales by month. And again, the data is great here, but let's do something a little bit more intuitive here. So what we can do actually is let's actually add a total column here. So we're gonna add a total. Now let's use some of the functions that we learned. Let's sum everything up. Pull this across. Now, this is going to allow us to actually add the total value of all of these going across the top. But let's even take it a step further. I'm going to copy all of this data. I'm just going to paste it over. What we can do is we can do this as a percentage of this. What we'll do here is we'll actually lock the row in this case so that we can pull it over. Pull it down. So as you can see here, we're not getting a percentage, so we'll change this to percent. And if we pull this over, it should work. Cool. So what we can do here is we can go select data. We're going to change our data from M5 to M6. Click OK. And now we're going to have the totals there, which is great, but doesn't really look good, right? So what we can do from here is we're going to right click, change series chart type, and we're going to actually change this to a scatter. So we'll click this. Oops. We want to only select this one. So we'll select this. Go to change chart series type, go down to the bottom here, and we'll change this to a scatter. Won't do with markers, we'll do without markers. So what we want to do is we want to change this to a scatter. So we'll change this to a scatter here. Cool. Click OK. And now we have the totals for every month accordingly. Okay, so now we have the data like this. What we want to do is we want to actually click into this data labels. We want to go to here and label options, and let's put them right above. Okay, cool. And what we can do here is we can just remove this top thing so it now is on top. Now, if we want to make these, we can click the dots. We can go up to here, format. We'll do shape fill, and we'll do no fill. Okay, cool. So we have the totals here, which is amazing. Okay, so what we can do here, so let's say we want to get each one as a percentage, so we can go here and change each data label. So we'll go to label options, and let's do value from cells. And now instead of selecting the actual number here for, let's just say January, we do the north, west, east, and south, we can come up here and select the corresponding value to fit the data that we want. So the first one is going to be west that we're doing. So we're going to take these values, click enter. Great, so now we have the percentage. Now let's take out the value, so we only have the percent there, and we'll do the rest for the other values. So we know that east is east, so we'll take out values, value from cells, select this range of cells, click enter, and do the same for the rest of them. So we'll take south, take away the values in the format data labels pane, value from cells, select the south. Cool. Same thing for this one, value from cells. This is north. Click enter. And awesome. So now we have a more intuitive chart that shows us the percentage of sales with the total sales for each month, and it shows the total sales. So as you guys can see, charts in Excel are extremely powerful, and in this case, we're able to actually make a dynamic chart that changes. If we change some of the percentages or change some of the values, let's say for the month of January, we realize that west is not 162, it's actually 500. Now you see that change. I'm going to change that data back. And that's the stacked bar chart or the stacked column chart. So very powerful, very useful tool. And let's move on to the double bar chart. And now this is easier, it will be an easier exercise, less complicated as the stacked bar chart. Just wanted to show you some of the cool nuances that you can do inside of there. Again, very simple, just select your data, go to insert. Let's look at recommended charts again. We don't see what we need here. We actually do see what we need here, so that's great. I'm going to go to all charts just to show you guys where to find it. So we can go to column, and we can choose it from here. Click this, click OK. Now I'm going to show you the quick layout tool here. I showed you on the first one, but there are different layouts that Excel automatically has for you based on your data. And let's choose one that we think fits the best. We want to do something quick. So I'm looking here. I think this one looks pretty good. And there we go. So now we see our revenues and expenses. And now let's maybe change this. So let's change this to green. Ooh, not the outline. Let's change the shape fill to green. And let's change our expenses to red. Okay, now we see our revenues and expenses. Let's change this to dollars. And that's the great part about the the Excel's smart graphs. It gives you the access titles already, so you don't have to add them in. And let's change this to years. And let's change this to revenues versus expenses. Now, in your case, you might, oops, Now, in your case, you might want to format these data labels and add values there as we did before. It's the same. So you can just click here, click right click, add data labels. So maybe you just want to show your revenues. And let's say you want to show your expenses. You can just click here and click add data labels. There you go. I'm going to undo those. And that's the basics of the double bar chart. All right, so let's say we want to look at our costs over time. We're going to do a line graph in this case. So let's go to insert. Let's do a line graph. Click 2D graph. And we got this. Now we want to change this, the years, right? We want to make the years our x-axis. So what we can do here, we can go, I'm just going to highlight this because we want this to be our x-axis, right? So what we want to do here is we want to go into chart design again. We want to select data. And instead of horizontal axis being this, we want to actually edit this and make this, the years, our horizontal axis. Click OK. And then take this line out. And then boom. Now we can see our costs going over time. So costs over time. And we're able to analyze some of our costs here. This is just an example of some data. And again, if you want to add some formatting here, change up the way this looks, feel right ahead to do so. A great way to visualize data over time, and it kind of visualizes the change either up and down. Another great graph in Excel. All right, guys, let's look at the pie chart. The pie chart's going to be good if you want to look at everything as a whole. Now, I have this data here. I have the funding source and then the percentage. Now, we want to see everything as a percentage of 100%. So again, you can go to the Insert tab. Recommended charts will automatically pull up a pie chart here, but we can also go to all charts in this case if we want to change it to something else. Let's say we want to do a 3D pie chart. So we got this, and this is going to have our funding percentages of our total budget. And just a great way to visualize how everything is piecewise in relation to the whole data set. We'll add data labels in this case. I think it's very useful. So let's say we want to see the data called out and we want to see what it actually is coming from. Let's just add the category name here, and we get it like this. You can just either pull it out if you want to do that to reframe this, or you can actually drag these individually and change their position. So let's say I want to keep it this size for whatever reason. I can just drag these around and make it a little bit more readable. Let's say I want to pull this out and pull this out. Looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. All right, guys, that's the pie chart. Let's go over to the scatter plot. So the scatter plot is just going to visualize our data over a wider range. So let's say we have a wide range of data, and here we have a satisfaction score, and then we have our response time in minutes. Again, insert. Let's go down here, or recommended charts. If you go down here and you open this up, we're going to see a scatter. So we see the scatter here. You can actually click on the data here, and you can go to add trend line. And it'll actually show a trend line that allows you to visualize what your data could look like if it's in a specific type of data trend. So what we can do is we can actually click on this trend line, and let's say we know our data is logrammatic or polynomial or a moving average, which doesn't work in this case, but we can actually change these based on what we think our data is acting like, and by doing some analysis to check that out. So that's pretty cool. I'm just gonna leave it as linear here, and we can see this. And let's actually go to quick layout, and let's just add a layout that fits us best. I think this looks cool. It'll actually show us our slope formula in this case. We'll change this to response time, and let's change this to satisfaction. Amazing. Awesome. So we can see that as our satisfaction score goes up, the response time is typically lower. So the longer people wait to respond, the lower the score is typically. And this is just a good way to kind of visualize data and look at it on a whole. It's not very difficult to look at this small amount of data, but you can imagine if this was, hundreds of lines, it would be a lot easier to visualize it in something like this. All right, guys, let's look at a map chart. A map chart is really cool inside of Excel. You can actually visualize geographic data. So in this case, let's say we're looking at populations. Again, select all the data, go to Insert. Now you can click on Maps here or Recommended Charts. Let's click on Maps. Let's click this. And then boom, look at that. It shows the entire world in this case, and it actually pulls in the geographic data that we fed it. So we can see here in China and India, they have a higher population. So this is shaded in a little bit darker. And this is really cool because we can actually add data labels here. And we can see the populations in this case. In this case, the data is a little bit large because they're in millions. So what you can actually do, or what I would actually do here, is you can actually format these numbers. So I'll go up to number up here in the format tab, go to more number formats, go to custom, and you can do this, and you can go ... 0, and you can put some dots in front of this comma. So what you can do here is you delete out whatever custom formula it had. You can go hashtag. Now we know this is thousands and we know this is millions. And you can go ... You can go .00. Click OK. And now these are going to be them as millions. And we can actually go back. Let's add something to indicate that. So go back to more number formats. And in a quotation mark, let's put mills. So we know that this is, in millions, the population totals. Okay, so this might be a little bit difficult to look at just because some of these countries are a little bit small. So what we can actually do, and this is really cool, is let's actually add a column here that says region. Now, we know that the United States is in the United States. We know that China is in Asia, India is in Asia, Brazil is in South America. Let's change this to North America. Russia is in Asia, Japan is in Asia, Germany is in Europe, France is in Europe, United Kingdom is in Europe. So what we can do here is let's select the region. Let's actually make a calculator that's called region. Let's do a drop down here. Remember data validation. So go to data validation from list. Let's choose this as our list. Click enter. So we have the different regions here. Now watch this. So let's actually add another table here where it'll be our country and our population. We can use the filter function. We'll add a helper column here. And we'll do an if statement. So if this is equal to this, true, else false, right? Click enter. Let's lock this cell in. Enter. And let's use the filter function. So filter, our array is going to be the data that we want to pull from. So we know that's this. We're going to include whether it's true or false. If empty, just skip that, click enter. So we know that Brazil is in South America in this case. Asia has these populations. So let's actually delete our chart out. And let's actually just do it here. So from here, let's select a region. So let's choose Europe. So we see this. Let's click Insert, Maps. So now we see that Europe is its own map. Now if we change this to, let's say, Asia, this chart should also update. All right, guys, let's look at the funnel chart. The funnel chart is useful for something like sales analysis. So let's say we want to see how people are visiting our website and what boils down to the bottom of our panel. So let's select this data. So let's say we're looking at some sales data and we want to see how many people start at the top and go all the way down to a renewal, right? So we know that based on this data, we have this amount of website visits, and then this funnel goes all the way down to renewal. So let's go and insert here. Let's go to Insert, Recommended Charts. Let's go to All Charts. Let's go down to Funnel. Click Enter. And now as we can see, we can actually see the data as it boils down to the 100 here. Now, if you want to actually show the 100, you can just make this a little bit bigger. And now you can see it visualizes, starting at the top, the websites, goes all the way down to our renewals. Maybe change the chart type, make it look a little bit prettier. And that's pretty much it for the funnel chart. A good way to visualize, traffic in this sense. So let's just say sales funnel. So in this analysis, we're noticing that as our website visits start at 3,500, they go all the way down to 100. So we know that 100 over the 3,500 is our bottom of the funnel. This is where we're making money at the purchases, subscriptions, and the renewals. And out of this 3,500 website visits, these are how many people signed up, bought something, or renewed their subscription. Pretty cool way to analyze data. A chart that's fairly newer to Excel, but very useful and very powerful. Okay, guys, let's look at this matrix of data, which basically is showing us some ideas and the cost, the revenue, and the complexity. Let's make a bubble chart. So let's go to Insert. We're going to do a blank chart in this case. We're going to do bubbles. What we're going to do here is we're actually going to change the data in this case. So we'll change the data. Let's remove everything from here. Let's go to Add. The series name, we'll just add it as idea. The X values will be the revenues. The Y values will be the costs, and the bubble size we'll use as the complexity, just so we can visualize the data a little bit better. Let's click OK. So we see here we got different opportunities in this case. Let's add some chart elements to make it a little bit more intuitive. So let's go to Access Titles. Let's go to Primary Vertical. Let's change this to Cost. Let's add a horizontal. Change this to revenue. Okay, cool. Now let's format the X and Y axes. Let's right click, format axis. Let's change the maximum to 10. And let's change the measure, which is going to show the units in this case, to 5. Okay, looking a little bit better now. Let's change the bottom as well. Format axis. Change this to 10. Let's change this to 5. Okay, looking pretty good. Let's actually add the ID here as the data label. So let's go to Add Data Labels. So they're off center here, as you can see. So let's go back here. Click Format Data Labels. Instead of the Y value, let's change this to, Data Labels. Format Data Labels. Instead of the Y, let's change it to a value from the cells, and let's make it the ID so we know which scenario we're dealing with. And let's take out the Y value, and let's put it right in the center of each bubble. So we know in this case, scenario number 4, which is to expand to new markets, it has a high cost and doesn't have a high revenue, but we know that scenario number 3 and number 2 might be the best choices. So that's increase the salaries or implement cost-effective methods. And in this case, we see number 3 is a little bit more complex than number 2, but we're able to produce more revenue. So in this case, we'll probably go with number 3. Cool way to visualize your data and light data scenarios. All right, guys, so let's get into the histogram. So what we're going to do is we'll select this entire data set here. We got some customer satisfactions, and we have the actual company names. So again, we'll go to Insert, Recommended Charts. Let's go to All Charts. Let's go down to Histogram. Click on this histogram, and then boom, we are done. Wait, but this looks kind of weird. So the same way you format all your data labels, you're going to do the same thing here. So you're going to click this, Format Data Series. We'll change the series options to the horizontal axis. We'll change the bin width here to 2. We'll change the number of bins here to 5. Automatically did it for us, but if you need to change that to 5. And in this case, we'll leave the overflow bins the same. In this case, we'll just do customer satisfaction. Okay, good to go. Let's add some data labels here to see the different values for these as well. So we'll click format or add data labels. Cool. So we get the count of each, shows us the customer satisfactions, how many of our customers gave us these ratings. So it looks like, I'm going to just pull this up to the top. So it looks like we have some customers that didn't really like our services, but for the most part, we're in that 6 to 8 range for the customer satisfaction. So that's good. And in this case, we'll be done here, but you can definitely do some other stuff inside the histogram. And let's get over to the Boxplot, guys. So the Boxplot, what we want to do again is we'll select this entire data set. And as always, I sound like a broken record. Recommended charts, all charts, and let's go down to Box and Whisker. So we'll click OK here. Now, as you guys can see, we have the Box and Whisker plots for the actual months, which is actually pretty cool. It shows us the variation and the variance of all of these over the months. But let's actually just delete this out, and let's just do the one data series in this case for just the monthly sales in total. So we'll go here. We'll go to Insert again, Recommended Charts, All Charts, Box and Whisker, just so I can show you guys some cool features that the Box and Whisker plot offers. So as you guys see these 2 dots here, these are actually outliers. So we have a low outlier and we have a high outlier in this case. And just to help us out, I'm going to use one of the tools that we used in an earlier video, the Analysis Tool Pack. So we'll go here, we'll go to Data, Data Analysis, Descriptive Statistics, click OK. Labels in the first row, that's good. And we'll put it out on D2. Click OK. And voila, we got all of the information that we need here. Now, let's actually add some lines, or actually at the bottom, let's add some other metrics. Let's do the Q1. Let's do the Q3. Let's do the interquartile range. Here are some more metrics that we might want to calculate for an analysis like this. I'll change this chart title to monthly sales. So we got the statistics here for the monthly sales. Let's calculate the interquartile range by doing the Q1. So we'll do equals quartile EXC. Our array will just be our data. Quartile number 1. So we'll get that. We'll do the same thing. Just copy this formula. Paste it in. Change this to 3. We know the interquartile range is just Q3 minus Q1. If we want to get the lower limit, the formula is the Q1 minus the interquartile range. Oops. Interquartile range times 1.5. So we know that's the lower limit. And we know the upper limit would be Q3 plus interquartile range times 1.5. Cool. So we know those are our metrics for this set of data. And as you guys can tell, in this analysis, we get a whole bunch of cool data points and summary statistics, and it allows us to really be able to look at our data and analyze it the best that we can. So we got some pretty cool summary statistics here for our different sales. I'll move this up one, and I will take out this border. Put this all into a box, the border on the outside. So we know this is our summary statistics. This is our box and whisker plot, and that's pretty much it. So as you guys can tell, very cool things you can do inside of Excel in terms of graphs and charts. And for the most part, this is a great way to jumpstart your ability to make graphs and charts within Excel. There are many other charts and graphs you can make that will help you visualize and summarize your data. These are just a few of the many possibilities you can make inside of Excel. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to jump into the data that provided on this video and do some more analysis, make the charts look prettier, and continue on with your Excel journey. I'll see you guys in the next module, which will be the last module, and then send you off on your Excel journey. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.